Hey guys, welcome back on the channel. So Bitcoin price right now is at 92k. Let's do another video about banking on Bitcoin. I haven't done one of those in a while, but you gotta understand this about Bitcoin. If you are in crypto, you probably are in it for money goes up. You want to make profits in fiat, but when banking on Bitcoin, you gotta abstract yourself from fiat's price or from Bitcoin current price in fiat, right? So you gotta have that mentality of accumulating Bitcoin. Of course, if you're going to use liquidity pools, you can have them to generate you some passive income, because liquidity pools, as I explained you in previous videos, they will generate you fees as long as you are in range, okay? Go check some of my older videos out on this playlist in order for you to understand all of that if you are completely new to this. But in a nutshell, what liquidity pools are, so actually let's go here on the X screener. So this is a liquidity pool, a Bitcoin liquidity pool. It's on the Binance Smart Chain, PancakeSwap exchange. It's a decentralized exchange, right? So imagine these two orange lines, they're going to be a range, a price range. So whenever you set these ranges, it will allow you to generate passive income whenever the price is chopping in between them. So theoretically, my ranges here are 125k and on the downside 100k, right? So something like this. I would not be generating any fees, but at the same time, my money is still there. My money is still in the liquidity pool. Actually, I have some others open here on PancakeSwap. Let me show you. So this is my original pool, which I showed you how to open, set up ranges, all of that in this same series, banking on Bitcoin. And the money is still there. It's still $19 worth of Bitcoin. As you can see, these are the holdings in the pool, and it's showing here inactive. So I'm not earning fees, but you can see the position did earn me some fees altogether in the past month, 35 cents. So you see here on the timeline, when the price was chopping in between these orange lines, it was generating me fees. That's the profit that I showed you. Although I'm still down, because initially I deposited $22 worth of the liquidity, and altogether the liquidity plus the fees are still below that because Bitcoin price went down. So in my opinion, this is one of the biggest mistakes people do. You can see this is not all that much of a tight range. This is probably 20%, yeah, 25%. It's not all that tight of a range. It means my APR will not be crazy. I mean, it's still crazy compared with traditional finance, but it's not going to be triple digits APRs. And that's one of the big issues. And recently on one of my videos, I got a comment about, and this is the comment: how do you make money when it goes down? I had a position and it dipped. I lost about $200. Am I doing something wrong? So this was in a video about yield farming on Orca, and I was showing some profitable liquidity pools there. Don't get me wrong, guys. You will always experience the price or the value of your liquidity going down as long as the price goes down. That is granted, okay? So what can be a kicker is the fees generated. So if you have a wide enough range, and likely the person who dropped that comment didn't, and what happened is that the price went out of range on the downside, they saw a big loss because they were having very tight range. They saw the liquidity dropped a lot in value and the fees didn't make up for it. So if you are new to all of this, it can be nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie, especially if you're going with big amounts. And that's why I came up with this whole concept of banking on Bitcoin. The whole point, as you can see, this is not a big deposit, but the whole point is have a wide enough range for you to just start DCAing, and step by step you go and you deposit $20 here, $20 there. Maybe sometimes you can deposit a little bit more, but number one, it allows you to have skin in the game. And number two, you are already operating with liquidity pools and having some understanding of how things work, and you're not overexposed. You're not having, let's say, $10,000, $5,000, something along those lines, okay? So it's not nerve-wracking because you're having a controlled deposit. But the whole point here is starting small, gradually building your position and understanding how everything works with liquidity pools, and then eventually you will have a wide enough range. So for example, right now I'm out of range. I could do a couple of things, as I will show you in the video, but eventually you will have a wide enough range so that you might not have a crazy APR of triple digits, but still you will generate fees during months. And for example, let me zoom out just to show you. So for instance, back here during 2024, we had this price range, let's say something like this. This is not crazy ranges. This is 70% range. And of course, I mean, we're looking at past price, so it's easy to say, okay, I could have set this perfectly fitting range 34%, and that would be earning me fees during almost a year, 266 days. From February to November, without having to worry about a thing, you would have generated fees. So this whole concept, banking on Bitcoin, is just to allow us to set a good range wide enough for us to not have to worry about managing positions all the time, and also earning some decent amount of Bitcoin in fees. And remember, this is perfect for stacking sats, because when you're going to stack sats, it's not about how much yield you can make. You earn a little bit every single day, and in the long run, it will accumulate Bitcoin. That's the end goal of stacking sats, right? So we can see also that with this range that started at November 6th of 2024 up until today, so over a year, a 70% range would have accommodated all of this price. So potentially what we're looking at in the grand scheme of things of Bitcoin price is the Bitcoin chopping in this price range, right? I don't have a crystal ball. I do not know for how long Bitcoin price will keep chopping within this range. But if you have a wide enough range on the downside, it will accommodate price drops. And then when this whole strategy really starts to shine is then when the price starts going up. And also remember, every time that you DCA in, especially when prices go down, you will drop your entry. And that is crucial for you to start seeing profits sooner rather than later. But going back to the comment, what you could do potentially, you can do a number of things, but potentially one of those things can be not locking in impermanent loss, which means you will not sell your holdings. So for example, I could go out of this pool right now, yeah, I would hold still this amount of Bitcoin, $20 worth of Bitcoin. Then I would take that, I would go here on Aave, which is a borrow lending platform, and I would take those $20 worth of Bitcoin and I would supply. That liquidity pool was on Binance, so I come here, I select the Binance Smart Chain. Of course, you can always send that Bitcoin to another blockchain. You'll have to swap it for something else, but since this is on the Binance Smart Chain, it's BTCB. So that's the tokenized version of Bitcoin, which is mostly used on the Binance Smart Chain. But I could take that Bitcoin, deposit here on Aave, you see BTCB, I would come here, supply it, and I would not lose a thing because I did not sell. So essentially what happened is that my original deposit, I can show you that on Crystal actually. In one of my previous videos on this playlist, I believe it was the last one even, you will be able to see how Crystal works, how you can deposit using it and use it to manage your liquidity pool positions in multiple exchanges, multiple liquidity pools. So this is the same liquidity pool, you see, PancakeSwap v3, position, total value 1942. The earnings here are a bit higher. So this also accounts for the cake farms. You see farming rewards here, it shows 0.028. These are cake earnings. Back here on PancakeSwap, this only shows me the liquidity positions earnings in fees. So it only shows 35. But I'm also staking this position on cake farms, so I earn a little bit extra because of that. Actually, it shows here also the PNL, so $2.43 down. And if I scroll all the way down, it shows me when I created the position, I deposited $21.88 worth of liquidity. It breaks everything down. Everything is recorded on chain and Crystal just fetches that data. So here is the deposit, how much in USDT, how much in Bitcoin. And you see there's also this transaction here, join farm. So that's the cake farm that I just told you about. But the point being here is just to show you that I created this position on October the 22nd and the money is still there. So if you're worried about what happens to your money when the price goes out of range, the money is still there, okay? And then I can come here, remove the liquidity and deposit it on Aave. So that is one of the ways. I could also deposit more, rebalance the position, which I'm not gonna lie, it's easier being done here on Aave, especially for complete beginners. But let's go back to Aave. So if I would take this liquidity out, 1943, I can then come on Aave, supply as liquidity, and once I do, I can then borrow against it. So I don't lose actually any money, and my Bitcoin will still be earning me some APY, although the rewards here are much smaller compared with what it can earn you in a liquidity pool, even with a wide range. There are some pros and cons to doing this. One of the cons is actually that your yield will dramatically diminish. As you can see, this is the APY, so 0.01%. It doesn't even compare with what you can earn in a liquidity pool, right? And if you borrow against your Bitcoin, you will also have to pay interest, but you can keep reinvesting into liquidity pools by doing that. And at the same time, you are still holding Bitcoin. And remember, I did deposit this on October the 22nd. So let me show you the price of Bitcoin back then. So you see October the 22nd, Bitcoin price was at around 107K. So once Bitcoin price reaches this, I will have my liquidity's worth of Bitcoin back. And it will no longer be worth only $19. It will be worth more than that, right? Because the price went up. This is regarding current market price, which is 92K. So we're talking about a 15% price appreciation. More importantly, we did not sell. We are still earning yield. And at the same time, you can use Aave to borrow against your deposit and open a new liquidity pool position, for example, with a wider range, which will keep generating you yield. So let me show you how that works in practice. So step one, we go here on PancakeSwap, we remove our liquidity. I'm going to take the whole thing, click remove, once again remove. Now I have to confirm in the wallet, confirm. It's going to cost a couple of cents. Binance is a very low cost blockchain. So yeah, transaction submitted, done deal. Now we're going on Aave. So you see now I can supply some BTCB here. Click supply. And by the way, you don't necessarily need to deposit here. Like I said, I can swap this for example, CBBTC on Base. I want to keep this beginner friendly, but bear with me here. I want to show you something on Base. So the APY here with CBBTC would be a bit higher, 0.07%. So we could use something like 1 inch in order to send funds from the BNB chain to Base. Deposit still a tokenized version of Bitcoin. Both of these tokens are pegged to Bitcoin, so essentially we would keep our value, but here we are exposed to a higher APY, right? But for the sake of showing you how everything works, and for simplicity, I'm gonna go straight up here on the BNB chain, supply, and now let's go with max. I'll have to approve this. That's because I never did this transaction here with this wallet. Confirm this, approve the spending of the token. Okay, so I'm gonna go now and supply BTC, sign in, confirm, and remember, this is something you can do. There's pros and cons, but this is one of the many things you could do with DeFi, okay? So I'm gonna click OK, close. I have some supplied Bitcoin here, which is worth $19.18. I can go here on the right side, assets to borrow, and I can borrow against my Bitcoin. And note that I could borrow any of these assets, BTCB, BNB, USDT, ETH, USDC, Wrapped Ethereum, and FDUSD. There will be a variable APY depending on what you want to borrow. Stables are pretty much the ones which have more demand, so you'll pay higher interest when borrowing against your own capital. So in between USDT and USDC, there's a smaller APY here on USDC. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to borrow this and I'm going to use this USDC to deposit once again into the same pool, but with a different range. So note that the max that I could borrow is $13. And that's because Aave allows you to borrow against your own capital, but they are under collateralized loans. That means you can never borrow more than you deposit. So you see, if I would go with max, there's liquidation risk here because my health factor, it's not good. So you want to keep it simple, but what you gotta understand is that once you are depositing here on Aave and you borrow against your position, you will be exposed to Bitcoin market price and you can be wiped out. So the higher your health factor, the better. But I'm gonna go with $6, which is a bit below half of this available amount. And I'm gonna go click borrow, sign this transaction. Now the token has been added to my wallet. This is how DeFi works, guys. My borrowed amount is shown here, APY. At any time I can come here, repay, or maybe even swap the token. So let me click risk details so that you can see. If the health factor goes below 1, the liquidation of your collateral might be triggered. This can happen if Bitcoin price drops, all right? So have attention to that. If I want to increase this, I would just need to come here, return some USDC or deposit some more Bitcoin. Either of those will allow me to increase my health factor. And by the way, another thing about health factor, remember, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, your health factor will automatically improve and you will see this starting to go up and away from your liquidation value. And the same thing also applies, of course, if the price of Bitcoin goes down, you'll get closer and closer to liquidation, but those are the risks. Essentially, that's what you need to understand about LTV and of course the health factor of your borrowed positions. But now I could come here on PancakeSwap, find that same pool again. So this is it. That's the pool I was depositing on. I'm going to click it and I'm going to open a new position now with a different range. So this was my previous range. Actually, it was something like this, 125. I remember it was pretty much at all-time high. And then I had a lower range. In this case, I'm going to set a lower range at 85K, and I'm also going to increase this to 130K. Of course, it pretty much depends. You could go with a narrow range, but remember, the tighter you make it, the more active you'll have to be managing your position. And this whole thing is about playing the long game and not having to worry all that much. We want to DCA in, keep building our bags, and optimally do nothing. Just come here, check the position, withdraw here and there to take profits, and that's about it. So on the downside, I want to go with 85K. And on the upside, I'm gonna go, let's say 130K. Potentially, if you want to be more conservative, you could zoom out a little bit more and see this price range here, and you can accommodate all of this. Go with the downside of 80K, for example. But let's go back here on PancakeSwap. I just need to swap here, toggle this in order to have the price shown in dollars. And I want to go with the max price of 130,000 and the minimum price, let's go with 85,000. So something like this. It shows the APR 18%. If I would consider 80,000, I can just swap that and now it's 16%. So it's going to differ. And this is always going to be based on the past performance of the pool in the past 24 hours. Okay. Don't get too caught up in it. Whenever there's going to be more volatility, this will increase. But let's go with 85,000. It's almost 20% APR. I'm not going to deposit USDT actually. I'm going to click this just so that TriZap shows up. This is something I explained in other video, but I want now to deposit only the tokens USDC that I did borrow. I have $6 worth of USDC. Click max. I want to deposit them to open this new position. And I also am going to deposit, by the way, a little bit more because I think it's a good deal right now to buy some Bitcoin at this price. So I'm going to deposit $20 worth of liquidity as well. This is what Zap does. It allows me to deposit other tokens which are not in the pool, and PancakeSwap does all of that in the back end. I don't have to worry about a thing. They do all the necessary swaps and deposit in the pool. I just have to select the tokens I have in my wallet. So I'm going to go click preview, add liquidity, sign in, confirm, transaction created, done deal. So current positions value $26.08. It's earning me fees, but now I still need to stake this so that it can earn me some cake tokens. So I'm gonna go click sign and boom, I just had to click the stake button. I don't know if you noticed, but that's how it works. Now I'm earning 1878%. This is one of the things you could do. And of course, I did not lock in any impermanent loss. Remember, our money now, our Bitcoin that we bought at a discount, considering the initial entry that we had back on October the 22nd, this is essentially buying Bitcoin at a discount and depositing it here. It will accumulate this APY, which is not all that great, but this is just to show you how things work, how you can work with your Bitcoin and never lose, because let me bring up the comment once again. It doesn't really matter that you're down if you are aiming to provide liquidity in the long run. And this is a way you can still buy crypto at a discount. You bought the dip. In practice, that's what happened. You bought the dip, you deposited into a borrow and lending protocol. I don't know if this comment refers to a position on Solana, maybe it's Solana USDC, but you can go on Solana and do the same thing by using other protocols like Camino, for example, Jupiter, and you just do this exact same thing I did on Aave. You don't necessarily need to borrow against your position. This is just if you want to keep earning something in the meanwhile, I mean, you will always earn something by having your money in a lending market, but the yield on liquidity pools is much higher than compared with those. But effectively, if the price drops, you can take your liquidity out, deposit the whole thing into a lending protocol, earn some yield, and then you can come back into the pool, deposit something in a new price range. If that drops once again below your current price, you do the exact same thing. You withdraw the liquidity, you go to the lending protocol, you deposit some more, and little by little, you're just growing your bag and you will always earn yield. Although, like I said, one of the cons is that on a lending protocol, you'll earn much lower yield. Then compared to the liquidity pool, you see the APYs here are very small, but on the pro side, you don't really forfeit your blue chips. You are still holding them, growing your bag in the long run. And that's what I wanted to share with you on this video, guys. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. This is one of the biggest issues. You go into a liquidity pool, really narrow ranges, because you look at how crazy APRs you'll get. But before doing that, guys, always zoom out, because you see volatility in crypto is crazy. And we're just talking about Bitcoin here, which is the strongest asset. We saw from August the 17th of 2024 up to today, well, not today, but all-time high, 140% price movement. Considering just today it's 80% price movement. So volatility is the name of the game in crypto. Have wide ranges to accommodate all of that. And if still the price drops and you're not willing to sell, this is what you can do by using borrow and lending protocols, guys. Now, that being said, thank you for watching. Drop a comment if you have any questions. I'm going to wrap this one up. Take care, keep exploring crypto. I'll see you on the next one.